Hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm the creator of the Color Street Business Tracker. I actually created the tracker back in 2017, and so over the last 3 years, I've taken some of the feedback that I've gotten from different customers and made a couple changes. And so that's why I'm recording a new video that will show you how to populate the new sheet that I've just created. So I've made some edits, and as of 2020, this tracker has a few updates, and so that's what I'm going to walk you through today, is how to populate the new tracker that's out there for purchase. So when you first open up the sheet, you're going to see this introduction page, and that just gives you a little bit of information about the actual sheet. The next tab you'll see is the P&L summary. And so this sheet, as well as the quantities tab, are both highlighted in red, and that's meant to tell you no, stop, don't touch this. So those two tabs you don't want to ever edit. They're just for reference and for your own information. So nowhere on this tab and nowhere on the quantities tab should you need to enter any information. All of those two tabs will populate by themselves once you enter information elsewhere. So I'll come back and show you a little bit more about the P&L once I actually populate some information. The only caveat that I would say to editing this tab is that every year I recommend saving a blank copy of your tracker. That way you can start from fresh in the future. So if it's say 2021 and you're starting with a blank sheet, you would come in here and you'd change this date to say 2021. And once you do that, you can see the date for all the months updates. And so that's the way that you would change the year when you're using a new tracker. But that's not something you necessarily would need to do right now. The next tab is the quantities tab. Again, this is just a reference tab, so I'll kind of gloss over this right now, and I'll come back to it once I update some more information in here. The next tab is the product list, and so this will come pre-populated with all of the sets that are currently in stock, as well as any set that was historically created. And so it should all be in here, but if a new set's released and you want to include it, what you would do is you'd come down. You can see there's a bunch of blank spots in here where you can add new products. You'd come down to the bottom of the list, and you're going to enter, I'm going to say it's called new item, and its product number is ABC123. Let's say it's $12. And so now I have this new item that's going to be available for me to select elsewhere in the sheet. And so if you're looking for a way to enter or get a new product into your sheet, this is where you're going to want to do it. Product list, and then add it to the bottom of the list. Let's say you want to get this item to be in the list alphabetically. All you'd have to do is click this little arrow here and then say sort A to Z. And once you do that, if you scroll down, I'll find that the item, new item, and you'll see, here you go, it's now entered in the middle of the list in the right alphabetical order. Let's say that you have an item you no longer want on there. So if I don't want that anymore, instead of deleting the whole row, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete the contents of the cell. And you'll see I'll end up with a blank row here, which you probably don't want. So then all you have to do is, again, click the sort A to Z. And once you do that, if you scroll down, you'll see that now that item no longer shows up in the list, and it's no longer a blank row in the middle of the list. So that's how you add an item and how you would delete something. Don't ever delete the row. Just make sure you just resort it after you delete the context and end up with a blank row. Okay, the next tab is the customer info. This is where you're going to put the customers' names that you want to enter later. So when you're selling an item to a customer out of your inventory and you want to record it in your sheet, you're always going to come in here to enter the customer's names. So I'm going to put in a couple of people. We're going to say this is Ashley D. We're going to have a Kim B. And maybe we're going to have a Jessica P. So I'm going to enter their names here. You can fill out any of this other information. One of the things that I like to use is the sample type requested. So a lot of times if I'm just trying to keep track of like who wants to host a party or what sample, I might say, yes, Ashley D wanted a sample and she wanted a glitter Tuesday. And yes, I sent my sample and now she wants to host a party. So this is just a place where you can quickly enter that information. If you have a lot of customers and you have some of those notes, you can actually come in here, and after you click this little arrow, you can like uncheck and say, okay, I want to see everyone that wants to host a party. And then it would show just those people on your list. Or you could say, I want to see everyone I sent or have not sent a sample to. You could, if you have N's in here, let's say someone requested a sample and you haven't sent it, you could come in here and say, I just want to see just the people I haven't sent, and then that will show there. Okay, so that's how you get the customer information in. On the next tab you'll see is called the Color Street Orders tab. And so this is probably one of the most important tabs. So this tab you'll spend a lot of time on entering all the orders that you've placed with Color Street for items that make it into your inventory. So let's say that on 1/1/2020, I was really excited about the new year. I bought a bunch of different items. You'll see all the items are here in this drop down. Let's say I bought a Steel City. I bought Vegas Crush. I bought Southwest Dream. And maybe I bought a Stick It To 'Em. And let's say, because I was doing a buy 3 get 1 free, I'm gonna say the first 3 items were all the ones that I'm gonna count as having bought them, and the last item, because it's one of my $11, I got that one free. And I'll say I ordered 1 of each, and then once they came in, I received 1 of each. So now let's say, what is this quantity retained for samples column? Because you'll see this here. This is a column that you're going to use, say, if you save a set for yourself to use, say for advertising purposes, or you gave samples out. So that's where I would record that. So let's say that I actually saved a Steel City. I'm going to record it here as having saved it, and you'll see once I do that, the cost of the inventory zeroes out. And the reason that happens is because you no longer want to include that as part of like a cost of goods, since you're going to record the cost that you paid for it right away in your expenses because you're using it as an expensed item. So I'll show you again. If I delete it out, that cost comes back. It was $11 what I paid for it. And once I put it in, that cost is gone. So what would I do with that? If I'm saving this as something that I'm expensing because it's a sample, what I would do is I would come over here to expenses, and under order date, I would put 1/1/2020. I'd put Color Street since they were the vendor. I would say I bought a Steel City sample. And then I would select the category, which in this case, I'm going to put it as sampler tester, and I paid $11 for it. So now I have that information entered into my expenses. There's something else that you'll need to enter under expenses for this order. So you might have noticed that I only put the retail price that I paid for the items. I didn't include any of the tax or the shipping on the Color Street Orders tab. You're going to want to include that right away on the expenses tab. So let's come back over to expenses, and I'll say for that same order to Color Street, I paid shipping, and I'm going to, under my category, I'm going to select shipping costs. And let's say I paid $3.50 for the shipping, and then I'm going to put for Color Street as well, taxes, and then under my category, I'll select taxes paid. And let's say for this order, I spent, I don't know, $4.25 for taxes. So now I have that information entered in here. It will actually show up on the P&L, and so I'll show you that so you can see what it looks like here. So if you come over the P&L, you'll see under January 2020, I now have information that's carrying over into my P&L. The other thing you'll see populate is this distributor cost of goods of remaining inventory showing $26. That's because on my Color Street Orders tab, I have 2 items that I paid $13 each for that I haven't sold, so they're still in my inventory, and I've paid $26 to Color Street. So you'll see even though I've already paid for those items, it's not showing up anywhere in my P&L because the cost of goods only populates once you actually sell the item. So if you want to know how much money you have kind of in inventory that hasn't been sold, this is where you want to look. Not necessarily up here because it's not going to show you everything you've spent to Color Street since it doesn't get expensed or captured until you actually sell the item. Okay, so that's how you enter information on the Color Street Orders tab. Now I'm going to show you on Inventory Adjustments. That's the next tab. So what would you use Inventory Adjustments for? I like to think of this as my kind of like trading spot. So if I trade an item with another stylist, this is where I'm going to want to capture it. So let's say on 2/1/2020, I traded, let's go back and see what I bought. I bought a Vegas Crush. Let's say I traded that Vegas Crush out. And let me find it. I'll find it on here, Vegas Crush. Under my quantity altered, I'm going to say -1 because I'm trading it out. And let's say that I traded it for a Valley Girl and I got one of those. And because I paid $13 for the original item, under my traded cost for the new item, I'm going to put $13 there. So that's how you would do that. So now if you go to your quantities, as I mentioned, it pre-populates. If you go to your quantities, you can, under this quantity available, if I want to see just what's available, you can click this little arrow and uncheck the blanks, and it'll show me just what I have in stock. And you'll see it now shows that I have that Valley Girl in stock, and instead of what previously it would have showed me that Vegas Crush. So because I traded out that Vegas Crush for Valley Girl, now I have a Valley Girl in stock. So we've got Southwest Dream, a Stick It To 'Em, and a Valley Girl in stock to work with. Okay, next tab is this customer sales. So let's say on 2/15/2020, I sold an item. Let's find my customer. I'm going to say I sold to Kim B. And let's say I sold her that Valley Girl. Let me find it in here. Valley Girl. Okay, once I pick that Valley Girl, I'm going to come in here and say I sold one. And you can see once I populate this sold, that quantity available after the sale turns blank. So I'll show you that again. If I delete it, it shows I have one available. Once I put that quantity 1 in there, then it shows me I don't have any available. Let's say she also wanted that Southwest Dreams. Southwest Dream. And so I need to put the same, make sure on this tab you always put the date on every line, and it's Kim B again. So she picked the Southwest Dream, and she bought one of those as well. And let's say that I just charged her $2.50 for shipping. I didn't give her any discounts, but I did charge her $2.25 for taxes. And so you don't have to put shipping on each item or the taxes on each item. If you just want to include them on like the top line of that person's order, that's fine. And then let's say that I was actually charged a processing fee of $1.25 because I did this through Square and they charged me a processing fee. So that's how you would enter all that information. So when you're entering the customer sales, again, you want to put order date on every line, make sure you pick your customer and your product name, and then fill out any of the other information you need to. There's some information here where you can actually use drop downs if you want to, like, you know, just record information like, oh, did I send an invoice? Did I pay that invoice? You can actually use those drop downs to help you keep track of what's been paid and what's been sent. Okay, next tab is the extra income. And so this is where you're going to enter information about commissions. So again, if you go back to the Color Street Orders tab, you're just entering the retail price you paid for an item. You're not entering like that rebate that you get back from your commission. This is where you would enter commissions. You can enter jump starts, things like that here as well. So let's say in February I sold a ton of stuff online and I made $125 the first week and $25 the next week, and then had a better third week and I made $150. And so once you put those commissions in here, again, that will pull over into your P&L. So we'll look over at P&L summary and you can see where now I've got commissions that are showing up. I've sold some products to someone, so that information showing up, and then it's actually calculating my cost of goods sold, so it gives me my gross profit for the month. And you can actually see, like, I've sold basically everything, so there's nothing left in inventory that I haven't sold that I paid for. Okay, expenses tab, we kind of went over that. This is pretty basic. You can look at your expense categories. If you don't like these categories and you want to change something, you can actually come into this table and change the name of the expense category. Again, similar to the other tabs though, just make sure you don't delete any rows or delete any of the lines. You just want to overwrite on this expense categories here. Okay, so then the last tab is the Invoice tab. I'm going to show you how to populate the Invoice tab. So this is for people who want to use the tracker to actually send invoices to their customers without having to use like an outside tool and without having to enter the information multiple times. So what you would come in and do is you'd set up this kind of as your initial template. You'll see it's populated with just kind of business information. So let's say I want to put my company name here. Let's say I live on 123 Main Street. I live in Houston, Texas, 12345. I don't know what my phone number is. And then my website is www.the-polished-engineer.com. So now all that information is entered here. You can see this made this a hyperlink. If it does that to you and you don't like it, go to that tab and then come over here to where it says autocorrect options, and you can say undo auto link or undo hyperlink, and then I'll put it back over to the side and that fixes that. Down here I have this kind of generic thank you note. So you'd want to make sure you come in here and edit this. And so I'll say, thank you for choosing the Polished Engineer. And let's say I want to insert my logo. So I'm going to come up here to this cell A1. And I'll say Insert, Illustrations, Picture. And it's on this device. And then I'll pick my logo. I'll make it really tiny and stick it up here in the corner. And so now I have kind of my generic invoice template created. And so anytime I want to go and send an invoice to someone, this will be kind of there for you to go ahead and populate and send out. So now the question is, what do I put on here? So the way you're going to populate this, you're actually going to use the information you entered into the customer sales tab. So I'll come over here, I'll say, okay, I want to do the Kim B order on 2/15/2020. So I'm going to select Kim B because she's the person I'm invoicing, and her order date was 2/15/2020. And then I'm going to come back over here to this sales tab. I'm going to select the two items she had, right click and say copy. And then when I come back here over to the invoice, I'm going to right click and paste those values. And once I paste that in, you can see it populates the rest of the information based on the things you had previously entered in that customer sales tab. And then it will give you your total. It gives you a place here where you can put in an additional discount. Let's say I gave her an extra $10 discount. The only thing to note is I left this line in here. But most of the time I would think you're not going to use this additional discounts. You're going to capture the discounts up in the customer sales tab in the actual order, because if you just put it here in this invoices, it's not going to carry over onto your P&L. So that's just something to keep in mind. But once you have all that populated, you could actually come over here to File, say Print, and then you can select either a printer, or in my case, I could say I want to print it to a PDF. That way I can email it to the person. And once you do that, you'll see this is kind of what that template invoice would look like. So that's pretty much it. I'll come back over here. Just a couple other things I wanted to highlight is this don't ever forget about your quantities. I sold some stuff and put that under customer sales. And you can see now, instead of being filtered to just what I had available, you can see now I've got some blanks as well. So if that happens to you, or you're not seeing all the inventory you think you should have, go ahead and refresh the filter. So click that arrow button again and then say OK again, and that will refresh the filter. So make sure you do that. So that's a common error I've seen in the past. And then again, look over on your P&L summary, make sure that you have the right year in there, and everything should populate itself. So this is kind of your one-stop shop. A lot of times at the end of the year, what I do is, after I have everything settled and I feel good, I just print this one screen and give it to my tax accountant, and a lot of times that's enough information for her to be able to go ahead and file the taxes. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks so much. Bye.